Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 691 for the 2nd of January 2022. Another year for the Skeptic Zone. And with this episode, it means the Skeptic Zone has been produced and broadcast in 15 different years, starting in 2008. Which also means there's probably listeners out there younger than the show itself. I'm out for a walk, an early morning exercise walk. Sort of a nice way to start the new year, I guess. Try to lose some of those Christmas kilos. And where I'm walking at the moment is along the street where normally lots of cars are parked up in a long line to get tested, COVID tested, but it's a bit early. It's a bit early at the moment. As a jogger jogs by, but I expect within the next hour the cars will be lighting up here, but I'm going to walk along to see where the queue starts, just out of curiosity, because later on in the show, in fact, the first story deals partly with the COVID numbers and the people queued up in their cars to get tested. Now, yesterday, the COVID numbers here in New South Wales were over 22,000. 22,000 new cases, but the number is expected to be much higher than that, much higher in reality, because these are only the reported numbers. But there is some hope, as various experts seem to think that the Omicron strain, while being more infectious than previous strains, is not as severe health-wise. And indeed, there are far few people, relatively speaking, ending up in hospital. Although those numbers are climbing too, because of the sheer number of people now getting the disease here in New South Wales. And Victoria too, the numbers are going up, and I think all around the country. We have reason to be optimistic. Let's hope so. Hope springs eternal. Anyway, getting back to this week's show, yes, I do discuss the numbers in previous days leading up to the show as I walk along this long line, which I haven't come to yet, but in the report coming up you'll hear me walking past the cars talking about the numbers and all the people who sit for hours and hours and hours on end in their cars waiting to be tested. And that leads onto a story about a woman who was recently dismissed from her wellness clinic for the terrible crime of getting a COVID vaccination. And that again leads on to another story. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole. And then to round off the show in trove, we look at cancer quacks. Cancer quacks over the years, including the case of John Brond. And he was a cancer quack operating in the late 1940s, early 1950s. Stay tuned at the end of the episode for more announcements from me. But now it's time for me to just keep walking. Just keep walking in the early morning. And who knows, I might be able to find a cup of coffee. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Today is the 27th of December. It's about 9:45 in the morning, and I've come for a little exercise walk to discover that the queue for the local testing centre, not so far away from the Skeptic Zone studios, the local COVID testing centre, is longer than I've ever seen it at snakes for kilometre after kilometre. I'm just walking along the lines of cars. Numbers today are again over 3,000, which is not encouraging, but what is encouraging is still the hospitalizations are not as bad as we might have feared. But it's just, I guess it's something for history, you know, walking along a queue like this and realizing what's going on in our society. And after nearly 2 years of this pandemic, today is the day of the longest queues I've ever seen. I guess that says something. People are reading books, and I guess you can forgive people for using their devices. Technically they shouldn't be doing it, but they're in a car park, so you know, I guess we have to realize that. And in fact, when you get near the end of the line in some of these queues, a healthcare worker will come up with a QR code, and that's when you fill out all your information for the test while you're sitting in the car, so that's perfectly acceptable. Yes, as I cross this street here, we live in interesting times, and I thought I would just walk along, I guess, to have a memory too. When this is all over one day, I can say that I saw the incredible queues. Who knows, I'll probably end up in one before long, the way Omicron is going. Today is the 29th of December, and I've come back out to the street here once again to look at the queue to see what the story is for the COVID testing. And yes, the cars are back. Hundreds of cars, I would imagine, in the queue. It's starting to grow as I watch it. Today's figures, I just read the news, 11,000. 11,201. So, almost a doubling from the previous day. I scarcely know what to think. And another thing to note is that the queue I'm coming up to for the testing, which those cars will be in that queue for an hour or two or even longer. Well, the testing centre's going to shut around midday or 1 o'clock or something like that, because it's that time of the year, you know, when things are laid back and easy. I must admit, right now I'm a little bit lost for words, simply because of the staggering number. We were worried earlier in the year, just before the wave hit, when the numbers were reaching 100, 200. Things were being locked down and there was general disquiet. But 11,000? It's sobering. It really is. But still, I think we can still take some solace in looking at the people who are in hospital and intensive care. And so far, that's not matching the outrageously high numbers of infections. In other words, it really does appear that Omicron is resulting in less hospitalizations, which is so... well, if there's a silver lining to this cloud, that's it, I would guess. So I'm walking along here near a park, and I'm just approaching the very last car in the queue. But by the way the queue's growing, it's going to be coming back towards me before long, I think. 11,000. I scarcely know what to think about those numbers. Now, following on from my adventure out there looking at all the cars lined up, and this story really does follow on because it's all to do with coronavirus and so on. And this is a tip-off by listener Graham Donald, who sent me a link regarding a woman who was sacked by her wellness clinic church because she got a COVID vaccination. The story goes as reported at the ABC, abc.net.au. Byron Bay woman allegedly sacked by wellness clinic Church of Ubuntu for getting COVID jab. This is by Bruce Mackenzie, and this is from the 16th of December. A Byron Bay woman is taking legal action after she was allegedly sacked for getting the COVID jab. Lainey Chait was working as a client care consultant for the Newcastle-based Church of Ubuntu, COU. The group promotes and sells alternative health remedies, including hemp products. Ms. Chait said she lost her job in October when it became known she was vaccinated. Quote, "For the past 25 years I've been going, I don't need the Western approach. But in this particular scenario, I did," end quote, she said. Ms. Chait said she supported freedom of choice in healthcare and was shocked to learn she was being dismissed for making a personal decision to be vaccinated. Quote, "It seems extremely hypocritical, and I think there are a lot of people in the wellness industry that are hypocrites," end quote, she said. Quote, "Because really you're in the industry to help people, not judge them. A lot of the customers that come to them are vaccinated, so why are you still serving customers that are vaccinated and not employing people that are vaccinated? That part I don't get. And that's the hypocrisy that pisses me off the most," end quote. Termination letter. The ABC has seen the letter sent to Miss Chait when she was dismissed. It laid out the reasons behind the decision, describing Miss Chait as a highly valued subcontractor within the Ubuntu Wellness Clinic Newcastle, who was also recognized as a full member of the Church of Ubuntu. It cited frustration with the New South Wales government, quote, "enforced medical apartheid," end quote, and, quote, "a highly disproportionate response to the SARS-CoV-2 virus," end quote. And the next part appears to be from the dismissal letter, and it says, "As a consequence of this, the Church of Ubuntu has taken a position that no committee members or full members can be accepted if they consciously choose to, and then complete injections with any of the current or future planned injections purported to protect from the COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 virus. It is the position of the COU that to receive the COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 injection consciously and deliberately with intent is in contradiction to our Constitution and contrary to our position on what is required of us by our Lord God and Creator. As a consequence, Lainey can no longer be a full member of the COU. She can, however, in keeping with the Ubuntu's philosophy, still remain an associate member if she chooses." And the story goes on about pending legal action, with the last paragraph saying the federal government urges all eligible Australians to vaccinate against COVID-19. For evidence-based information on coronavirus vaccines, see here. And that link takes us to a government page. Is it true? Get the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Now, when I read this story, the Church of Ubuntu did ring a bell. And a little more investigating brought the story back to me a few years ago. Members of the church were outside a Sydney court taking cannabis oil. So when you get down to it, this church, this wellness clinic, is heavily into hemp and cannabis as a cure-all for probably just about everything. Now let me run some audio, and this comes to us from the 7 Network, and this is from December 2017.
This is me using cannabis oil.
Members of the Church of Ubuntu in Newcastle at court supporting their guru, deregistered Dr. Andrew Catalaris.
Tony Abbott ruled.
Sunday night profiled Catalaris in May, treating a severely ill 4-year-old with cannabis oil.
That will keep several children going for several months, but there are many, many children in need.
Soon after that story, Catalaris was charged with possessing, making and supplying large commercial quantities of cannabis oil.
We cannot afford to have our work interrupted by ill-considered police or other interventions.
His lawyer, Michael Corn, today dropped his client. His bail was cancelled 10 days ago. He appeared by video link from prison. Inside the court, supporters yelled out, "Set him free. He's a political prisoner. He's not guilty." Catalaris then detailed what he described as the inhumane conditions at Parklea Prison, saying the guards there are sadistic. Judge Conlon said he'd recommend he be moved to the Metropolitan Remand Centre at Silverwater Jail ahead of a bail application next month. Among his supporters, Church of Ubuntu leader B.J. Footer.
Nothing goes up. Do you hear me?
Just calm down.
Have you heard me?
Yes, I heard what you said.
Nothing goes up.
I hear you. Yep. Catalaris has a bail hearing next month. If convicted, he faces up to 20 years jail. Brian Seymour, 7 News.
So those people were there to support Andrew Catalaris, who calls himself Dr. Pot, who's had many run-ins with the law over the years. There's a little bit of research as uncovered. I also have learnt that he believes that COVID-19 was developed in a lab. So, unsurprisingly, he's in with the conspiracy theorist. He also regards himself as a persecuted health professional. He knows the truth. Cannabis oil can save people. And if the medical profession don't agree, then obviously they're part of the conspiracy and he's just persecuted. And he has spent time behind bars. A little bit more about the Church of Ubuntu. On their webpage it says, "Our story, the Church of Ubuntu and the Ubuntu Wellness Clinic. We believe that a person is a person through another person. The word Ubuntu means I am because we are. In Sanskrit, it is called Shoham. You are, therefore I am. The word you, in the sense that we are a part of the living earth, air, fire, water, space, and time are sacred. Our relationship to them is that of reverence. Ubuntu means we are all related, interdependent, and connected. Ubuntu is a non-dualistic, all-embracing, multi-faith philosophy and a way of life." And it goes on and on and on. Sort of a word salad of various religious philosophies. And a quick peek at their online store reveals many products relating to hemp. And what's this, a DVD? They're flogging the hemp solution. Now, the Sydney Morning Herald did a story on Andrew Catalaris, as I'm discovering here online, a deregistered doctor. Well, I guess he was a medical doctor at one stage or another, but he is deregistered. And another look around brings us to the website of the Healthcare Complaints Commission. And here's a page dated from the 25th of October 2016. Public statement in relation to Mr. Andrew Catalaris. The New South Wales Healthcare Complaints Commission conducted an investigation into a complaint that Andrew Catalaris, a deregistered medical practitioner, administered intraperitoneal injections of cannabis oil to 2 women with ovarian cancer in September 2015, which resulted in serious adverse reactions and their prolonged hospitalization. The investigation found that Andrew Catalaris breached the Code of Conduct for Non-Registered Health Practitioners and provided health services in an unsafe and unethical manner when he devised a hasty, ill-conceived and unsafe clinical trial of injected cannabis oil as a treatment for malignant ascites. He obtained cannabis resin from the black market and did not ensure that it had been analysed for potency and potential contaminants before administering it by injection. He did not obtain informed consent from the women to whom he administered untested cannabis oil, in that he did not explain he had been unable to test it first. He told one of the women to defer telling her oncologist about the experiment until after it had been done. even though she expressed her discomfort at keeping back any information that may have a bearing on her upcoming chemotherapy and surgery. He told one of the women to defer having her ascites drained because he needed to have her ascites present to test whether his trial had worked, even though he had no means of measuring the results. Ascites, by the way, is a fluid build-up in the abdomen. He administered huge doses of untested cannabis via intraperitoneal injection and caused foreseeably serious complaints for both women. And look, the points just go on and on, but further down the page it says, the Commission is satisfied that Andrew Catalaris poses a risk to the health or safety of members of the public. The Commission makes the following prohibition order. Andrew Catalaris is permanently prohibited from injecting cannabis or any of its derivatives, either by itself or mixed with any carrying agent, to any person. Andrew Catalaris is permanently prohibited from supplying or administering cannabis or any of its derivatives to any person for the treatment or purported treatment of cancer. Since the Commission's investigation into this matter raises issues relating to potential criminality, the Commission has formally reported the findings of its investigation to the New South Wales Police, as is normal practice. Diving further into the rabbit hole, we have a news report from the Daily Telegraph, dated the 3rd of December 2018. Good doctor found not guilty in medical cannabis case, and good doctor is in apostrophes. The court ruling is a win for medical cannabis and advocates around the country. It says, this is reported in the Northern Star. Apparently, the Australian Hemp Party has welcomed the decision of the Downing Centre District Court, which found doctor, and they're calling him doctor for some reason, which they shouldn't be doing, Andrew Catalaris not guilty of all charges in relation to the supply of medical cannabis to patients. Hemp Party President Michael Balderstone expressed his support for Dr. Catalaris. Again, they shouldn't be using the term doctor. So he has had ups and downs and wins and losses, it would appear, but ultimately I think you can get the gist, and there's certainly plenty of online evidence to back it up that he is of the opinion, and which many people are, that hemp oil, hemp products, cannabis products can treat and cure a wide range of illnesses. And no doubt they have their uses. As we know, there is such things as medical marijuana, which has a use. But it's a very dangerous rabbit hole to think that one product can cure a wide range of ills. And as we've read before from the Healthcare Complaints Commission, that certainly wasn't the case for those women. There you go. An interesting, twisting rabbit hole of conspiracy, all because a woman decided to get a COVID-19 vaccination.
Woohoo! Drinking, hey! Oh, drinks, hey.
So nice to be back at Skeptics in the pub.
Yes, Richard, it's great that COVID-19 is a thing of the past and we can gather together and not wear masks. Although I will occasionally, in special situations, you know what I mean, don't you?
This beer tastes better than I remember. And this beer glass is much bigger than I remember. Oh, thanks for this. I'll get the next round.
No need. All the beer is free tonight.
Free? Oh, wow.
Did you hear that all the anti-vaxxers and flat earthers have changed their minds?
What? Really?
Yeah. They're now busy writing apology letters to the whole world. They're really busy. They're going to have to sharpen their pencil, if you know what I mean.
Look. It's Lara coming over here with a plate full of food.
Hi, you two. Did you know that the food at the bar is free tonight? Anything you want.
Really?
You have to try the lobster and chips.
Lobster and chips? Oh, wow! This is like a dream!
And this pub now has recliner chairs, a free foot massage for everyone, and vouchers for Uber rides home.
Wow.
Hang on. This seems too good to be true. Who's the guest speaker? It's not bloody Brian Dunning, is it?
Let me see. This is odd. It says here it's the skeptical fairy godmother angel from the internet.
The skeptical godmother fairy in... You know, that sounds familiar.
Smoking it up, woman.
Hello, everyone.
Who are you? Well, you're only 10 centimetres tall. That's about 4 inches for those of you using the Darth Vader Imperial system. And floating in the air, that can't be right.
As Lara said, I'm the skeptical fairy godmother angel from the internet.
Ask a silly question.
And you're tonight's guest speaker?
Well, not really. I have come to tell you that, yes, this is all a dream.
Yeah. I thought this was too good to be true.
I know we can't meet in pubs at the moment, but that shouldn't stop you from enjoying skeptical talks online. The Vic Skeptics have Skeptics Cafe each month. Sydney has Skeptics in the pub. There are online events from the Gold Coast and...
Yes. This all sounds eerily familiar. Have we met before somewhere?
Maybe we have. Maybe it was as we watched a live and interactive skeptical talk. All you need do is search for them online, no matter where you are in the world.
She's right. I've been watching skeptical talks from the UK, the US, and even one from my own living room. Although that one wasn't very interesting. I fell asleep and I was the speaker.
Hang on. Weren't you once the Tooth Fairy?
I'll never live that down.
One last question.
Yes?
Just whose dream is this?
Mine. Goodbye.
It's worse than sparklers.
She disappeared.
But, we're still here, huh?
Right. So, lobster and chips, anyone?
Oh, yeah, he only pays for food and drinks in the dream, let me tell you, people.
It's time once again to look into those Trove archives at trove.nla.gov.au, your online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia, digitised newspapers, books, magazines, gazettes, journals, and so on, going back decades and centuries. And this week we'll be looking for references to the term cancer quacks. Now, of course, cancer quackery is nothing new, and it's still going on to this very day, as we've seen in the last years, really. We've seen it at things like Mind, Body, Spirit festivals. And not so long ago, at one Mind, Body Wallet, one Mind, Body, Spirit festival, the DVD, One Cure for Cancer, was being sold, and this is to do with something called black salve, which is a substance that you make up and it sort of eats into your flesh. And the stories coming back from people who have used that are just horrifying. But let's look back into the archives and see what people in the past had to deal with cancer quacks. And our first one today comes from The Observer, from Adelaide, South Australia, dated the 28th of August 1930. Prosecuting quacks. Victorians can act if they are not cured. Melbourne, Tuesday. That the Victorian Public Health Commission had power to prosecute quacks was stated by the chairman, Dr. Robertson, at a meeting today. A man, 77, who was reported to have claimed that he had an infallible cure for cancer and tuberculosis would have to be allowed to practice in peace until he died, Dr. Robinson said. We cannot prosecute this man. We have no power to prevent gullible people buying whatever they like from private individuals. The only way we could take action would be in the event of this person marketing his remedies through chemists. Then we could prosecute him only for selling goods not true to label. Patients can take civil action if they are not cured, and it is obviously impossible to cure them in the time claimed. Here's a report from the Lithgow Mercury dated the 10th of December 1954. Russian cancer quack stopped. A quack doctor who claimed to cure cancer by grass infusion was denounced in the Russian press. The newspaper Agriculture reported that the Ministry of Health had ordered an investigation into the swindling activities of the quack, a man from Taninka in the Moscow region. The newspaper said that his activity was stopped, but did not report whether he was put on trial. The newspaper noted that apparently the doctor had little faith in his own sorcery. When his wife was stricken with cancer, he immediately sent her to hospital. And that reminds me of reports we've had over the years from various faith healers or psychic surgeons who, when the chips are down and they really do have something wrong with them, suddenly decide it's better to send themselves or their family to a hospital rather than relying on the miraculous power of gods or their own claimed psychic surgery ability. And our next story comes from the Bendigo Independent, 2nd of February 1910. And this is a little bit faded, but we'll have a go. Quack cancer cures. We have repeatedly warned our readers against certain quack cancer cures of a caustic nature. This sounds a little bit like the black salve I was mentioning before. The British Medical Journal now points out that caustics are in fact the weapons of the quack, and although they may have a legitimate sphere of usefulness in surgery, it is very limited. Surgeons would only be too glad to be spared the necessity of having to, and I think the word is recourse, to the ultima ratio of the knife, but at present it is the only way which offers a chance of cure with the least possible suffering. But the formula of the quack, quote, cancer treated without the knife, end quote, appeals with great force to the public, which does not know the terrible agony which those treated with caustics have to undergo. Of this, a vivid description is given in a little book by Mr. Philip Gauss, the father of Mr. Edmund Gauss. Mrs. Gauss was treated by an American cancer cure by caustics, and the result may be summed up in the statement that, quote, suffering never eased from the beginning of the operation till her spirit was freed from the worn-out body, end quote. The process of the cure lasted several months. Our contemporary concludes that while catch-a-penny newspapers proclaim cures wrought by herbalists and practitioners irregular and regular, deluded folk will flock to them. Cancer curing is to our mind the most execrable of all forms of quackery, for in addition to the bitterness of disappointed hopes, it inflicts an incalculable amount of unnecessary suffering. Again, that's true to this very day. And now we have a report from the Daily Mercury, Mackay, Queensland, dated the 5th of January 1948. Quack claims cancer cure. Sydney, Sunday. A Sydney layman who claims to be able to cure cancer this week removed a cancer root from the neck of a Roman Catholic priest in the presence of 7 witnesses. He is John Brond of Beverly Hills, who describes himself as a quack, but has been credited with some amazing cancer cures in the last few years. The priest, who came from another state, had been certified by 2 doctors after a series of operations as an incurable cancer case and given only a short period to live. Recent publicity given to Brond in a newspaper article has excited intense public interest in his claims. Brond has asked the government to appoint a panel of 5 experts to examine his methods and cures. If they are found to be true, he is prepared to give his methods for use free. The State Director General of Health, Dr. E.S. Morris, announced this week that he would visit Brond shortly to discuss his claims. 2 doctors who treated the priest said today that if after some time had elapsed it appeared that the cancer had been permanently cured, they would do everything possible to assist Brond in his claims for recognition. Now, believe it or not, I have actually found, concerning John Brond, a newsreel from British Pathé dated 1948 here on YouTube. Fascinating. It ties in directly with the story we've just heard. Let's listen in on some of this newsreel.
In this cottage at Beverly Hills near Sydney, John Brond is treating upwards of 30 people a day. John Brond, 78 years of age, is a private citizen with no medical training. Yet he is able to produce many patients who claim emphatically that they have been cured of cancer. So far, there has been no official investigation, and to some extent, Mr. Brond must take some of the responsibility for that, because he has rejected a committee nominated by the government and which would have included some of his own nominees. The public, appalled at the ever-increasing toll of the scourge, wants the fullest official investigation of Brond's treatment, even if that means giving away in some degree to the whims of an old man, whom many might consider difficult at times. If John Brond can cure only some forms of cancer, then no stone must be left unturned to give him the recognition he deserves and persuade him to make his methods available to suffering humanity. This newsreel does not seek to plead Brond's cause. It presents the facts as it finds them, but it does insist in the public interest that Brond's claims be officially proved or disproved, and without any further evasion of the issue on either side. Mr. Brond claims that the primary cause of cancer is a blockage in the bloodstream. The first step consists in detoxicating the blood as far as possible and ensuring adequate blood circulation, especially in the minute capillaries. Some patients under treatment cover their faces for the obvious reason that at this stage they do not desire publicity for their condition. Brond's method insists that the blood be swept away from the heart and not to it. The second stage is the injection into the tumour or growth of a liquid, the chemical makeup of which is known only to Brond. After a lapse of 10 to 20 days, the tumour, now dead and shrunk to a quarter its normal size, may be easily removed. Later, you will see the removal of a growth, but in the meantime, here is John Brond himself.
During the past few weeks, there has been a lot of publicity about cancer cure. I have been treating malignant growths for 20 years. I took one case before the Cancer Research Board in 1933. I have cured many people, but particularly 318. Those were all malignant growths. I would like the cameramen to interview some of those that I have done, and they can see for themselves whether it has been a malignant growth or not.
And now a man who had a cancer removed from his face by surgeons some years ago, but another grew.
My name is Austin Reddix. I am a justice of the peace. For the last 3 years, I have been under specialist treatment for cancer. In October 1946, I had glands removed. I was advised to call and see Mr. Brond, and he assured me that he could cure me of cancer without the use of the knife. And I am very pleased to say that he has done so. And it's to be hoped the world will benefit by his remarkable discovery.
To find the answer to the published statement that long-standing cures cannot be found, Cinesound went to Bowral, New South Wales, and interviewed Messrs. Bert Higgins and Arthur Davis.
My name is Bert Higgins of 442 Bong Bong Street, Bowral. Some years ago I was informed I was suffering with cancer. I felt quite confident myself that was correct, owing to the gnawing pains that I suffered in my stomach pains in the side and on my spine. I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Brond, who diagnosed my case as cancer. He took the growth from my back. That's just 4 years ago. And since then, I've had no recurrence of the trouble whatsoever. My name is Arthur George Davis. About 15 years ago, I had a very bad ear and was diagnosed as very bad cancer. And the local doctor sent me down to a specialist in Sydney of eye standing, and he treated me with radium, but it appeared to be cured then, but it came back again. And then it got very bad, and I went to the local doctor again, and he sent me down to another specialist, and the specialist said that I for diatherma treatment. But the man said it was that far gone, he couldn't treat me with that, and he sent me to a surgeon. And the surgeon said that I'd have to have my face practically cut off. I was advised to go to Mr. Brond, and from the very start he said it was a very bad cancer, but he said he could cure it, and he guaranteed. He took a weight off my mind. And that's roughly that is 2.5 years ago, and I've had no reoccurrence of the complaint since.
Mr. Gifford of Melbourne had cancer of the liver. Mr. Brond states his treatment has brought the growth to the surface, and he is extracting it without anaesthetic or pain to Mr. Gifford, who 3 weeks ago could not bear the slightest touch to his stomach. Whether what Mr. Brond has extracted from Mr. Gifford is a malignant growth or not, our 4 observers are obviously not competent to say, but if it isn't a growth, what is it? Minutes after the operation, Mr. Gifford walked briskly from the surgery, apparently no more affected than if he'd lost a loose tooth.
Some time ago, about the 17th of November, I had a stomach trouble diagnosed by a leading Melbourne surgeon as cancer of the liver. It was a recurrence. I'd had a cancer removed from the lower bowel 4 years ago. 3 minutes ago, I had the cancer removed by Mr. Brond. Here it is in this bottle. During the time that Mr. Brond was treating me, I was not confined to bed. I was able to get about quite well, and I think I put on a little weight. That is, before the cancer was removed. I feel fairly well today, quite well able to go about, and I think, well, Mr. Brond tells me I'll be quite all right in 3 weeks' time.
Despite the evidence you've just seen and heard, Cinesound urges the public, and afflicted people in particular, not to raise too much hope until the Brond method has been proved beyond all doubt. This proof, which science demands, is not yet forthcoming. But this company believes that it has taken a longer step towards discovering the truth than any other party interested in the Brond controversy. It has had a positively certified case under Mr. Brond for the last 4 weeks. The facts of this will be laid before you in the next issue, as space does not permit it in this. This is Peter Bathurst, leaving you to think over what you've just seen and heard, and expressing the hope, in the name of suffering humanity, that a cure for cancer may have been discovered. And this, I am sure, is a hope that every human being will subscribe to.
Now, let's see if we can find out whatever happened to John Brond. Now, Wikipedia says that in 1948 there was an Australian film entitled Can John Brond Cure Cancer? This is a 1948 Australian documentary directed by Ken G. Hall about John Brond, a man who claimed he could cure cancer. Brond was a highly controversial character at the time, and the film was much publicised. There was considerable controversy over whether Brond should have been allowed to have such a public forum. Brond was later declared to be a fraud. Well, that's interesting. And chasing this story around even further brings us to the US National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health. Just a quack who can cure cancer, John Brond, and regulating cancer treatment in New South Wales, Australia. In 1948, the New South Wales government initiated an inquiry into the claims of John Brond, a 78-year-old self-described quack, that his secret treatment had cured 317 cancer sufferers. The Brond controversy, as it became known, was one of Australia's most prominent cases of medical fraud. And after a very long page here, conclusion. The Brond controversy initiated a cascade of legislation in New South Wales seeking to regulate who could offer to treat or cure cancer. Very interesting and maybe worthy of more research. But from the experience I've had, it's very difficult to peg people down as being frauds as opposed to innocently deceiving themselves. A lot of people out there really do think they have miraculous powers, or they've discovered the cure, or they can do all these things. Now we come to a report dated the 30th of October 1954 from the Barrier Daily Truth from Broken Hill, New South Wales. John Brond charged. Albury, October 29. Detectives investigating the death of a suspected cancer victim at Walla Walla near Albury last night arrested John Brond, 87, and charged him today with having an illegal drug in his possession. Brond was allowed a bail of £30 and will appear in Albury Court on November 22nd. Police action followed the death early yesterday morning of Kevin Athol Young of Bankstown, Sydney, who died at Brond's house. Young, who was told by a Macquarie Street doctor that he had cancer of the stomach, went to Walla Walla 6 weeks ago. A post-mortem examination was held yesterday, and specimens have been sent to Sydney for analysis. And we have a follow-up from the same newspaper dated the 23rd of November 1954. John Brond discharged. Sydney, November 22nd. John Brond, 87, of Walla Walla, was discharged today in Albury Court on a charge of possessing a prohibited drug. Brond was questioned by police and later arrested after the death of Kevin Athol Young, 21, of Sydney, who died at Brond's home. It was alleged that Young had been receiving treatment from Brond for a malignant growth on the knee. And now we come to a report from the Canberra Times dated the 25th of April 1955. Man who claimed cancer cure dies. Albury, Sunday. John Brond, the man who for many years claimed to possess a cancer cure, died today at his home in Commercial Street, Walla Walla. Brond, who was 86, has been suffering from a heart ailment. He received publicity in October last year when one of his patients, 21-year-old Sydney man, Kevin Athol Young, of Bankstown, died after being treated for cancer. Brond, who called himself a hydropath, was charged with illegal possession of a drug following police investigations. He was discharged at a subsequent hearing in Albury Court. When police could not produce analytical evidence, Brond was later summoned but did not appear in court after the initial charge was dismissed due to a worsening heart condition. Some of this text is a little hard to read. During the inquest into the death of Young, the coroner was told that Brond injected a mixture of water and ammonia into the cancer and cut away the flesh with a pair of scissors. And that was the end of John Brond. Now, just getting back to the newsreel, I played some of the audio from that, and a couple of points to make. One is, and I'll link to this in the show notes so you can see this for yourself, there is a segment where they show a little bit of the operation he is performing on a man. And, you know, it looks suspiciously like the tricks of psychic surgeons. He pulls out this big lump from the stomach of a man, and it's a bit hard to tell because it's an old newsreel film, but it looks very suspicious. The other point I'll make, and this reminds me of something Benjamin Franklin is quoted as saying, which is, there are no greater liars than quacks, except for their patients. And what does that mean? Well, nobody wants to admit they were swindled. And it also means that in many cases, the patients of quacks are not lying. They really do think they've been cured by quackery. things that can't possibly work. It reminds me of the power balance wristbands of years ago, where hundreds of people were convinced that these things actually work. Thousands and millions of people are convinced that homeopathy works, for example, although we know full well it doesn't. Thousands of people no doubt think they're getting healing energy via Reiki, although there's no evidence that Reiki as an energy exists at all. And there are many such cases. But what an interesting little detour Trove took us on this week. I wasn't expecting that. And you'll never know where you will end up when you look at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au. You can research all sorts of interesting things from the past, as reported in the pages of Australian media. Yes, you never know what you will find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you to those listeners who for another year are going to be supporting the show in a very real sense with monthly or weekly contributions via Patreon or PayPal, and you can join that crowd yourself by visiting skepticzone.tv and clicking the subscriptions button. And on that page you'll also notice I've set up an Amazon wish list. We have some equipment that would benefit the Skeptic Zone. So if you feel so inclined and you're wondering how you can contribute to the show, you might not want to be a regular Patreon or PayPal supporter. That's fine. There might be something on the Amazon wish list that you could put my way by going through that process. Anyway, check it out. Now, this Thursday night here in Sydney, so Thursday night Australian time, Sydney time, Melbourne time, at 7:30 we have Sydney Skeptics in the pub online, for obvious reasons. And this month it's a skeptical trivia game. Join in and test your skeptical trivia knowledge. You can find out more about that via the links on this week's show notes, or just go to Meetup and look for Sydney Skeptics in the pub. And that will all be happening on Twitch, on the Twitch platform. And our very clever friend Lara Benham, who you hear on the show from time to time, has worked out a way to have a sort of an interactive trivia over Twitch. So I'll be there to guide the evening, and then the questions will come up and you can test your skeptical knowledge. Hope to see you there. This Thursday night here in Sydney, Australia. Check your local time zones for time zones. Well, I've come to the beginning of the queue now. First cars. Yep, they're parked there. And I guess I'm about 1 kilometre away from the testing clinic itself. And when I walked by yesterday, there was a sign outside saying they were not taking walk-ins, so you had to be in a car. So a lot of people would have been a little bit put off by that, I think. And judging by some of these cars, looks like people have been here for a long time. There are reports about people lining up at various testing clinics in their cars from the early morning, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And with the numbers the way they're heading, I'm not surprised. I am scheduled to get my booster shot in about 3 days. I'll be very glad when I do that. But for this week, and wondering what 2022 will bring us all, this is Richard Saunders signing off from a very long line of cars in Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes.
You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.
Well, folks, it's the end of the show and it's the beginning of 2022. But as I record to you now, it's actually 2021. It's very confusing, something to do with international datelines I've given up a long time ago. I'm with I'd normally like to say I'm with the great Australian psychic prediction crew, but that's a thing of the past now. Yeah. I'm with Susan Gobeck's Trivia. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Richard. Hello. There's more of us than it sounds. There's a lot of people here, and it made it sound like we had 6 people here. You guys need to make more noise than that.
Now, I'm just going to turn off my virtual background, which is space, because I'm quite interested in the James Webb telescope going out at the moment. I'm holding up the die we're going to be using today. It's a die I picked up in New Mexico. It's aliens. Look at that. There's an alien. Spaceships.
I see the 5.
And yes, Susan sees the 5, so it's a D6. Here we go. We're going to go roll it 3 times.
Should we put it in the chat?
We can put it in the chat if you like.
Everybody
chat in the text chat. In the text chat, put in your guess. We got a 3.
Wait.
2. Oh, lots of numbers coming up. As we might expect, there are a lot of people playing. Okay. And Susan, I see yours as a 5. Here it comes. The first roll for 2022 is 4.
Yes, by that much.
1 for 1.
Ooh, I'm psychic.
Yep.
All right.
Got it.
2021 has not been my year.
Rolled it incorrectly.
Make a note of that. 4 and
Rolled
guess again
incorrectly.
for the next one.
Okay, make your guess, everybody, quick.
So people
5.
People are putting in their guesses.
I'm
so
trying
they can't
5
change their
again.
mind.
It's going to have to.
2.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Oh, this is I'm holding this up. That's the
hold it up. Greg Dre gave it to you.
Greg Dre gave me this and
can't see it.
Oh,
5.
Is there a plus or minus? Do we have a plus or minus?
No.
Plus or minus 6.
You see, Susan?
It's a 5. It's a 5, you guys. You don't know how hard I've been trying to get 555.
Last one.
55.
Let's have your guesses. 6, 3, 2, 4, 6, 1, 5. Lots of guesses. Okay. Wow. Everyone's putting in their guess. Here it comes.
1.
And it is
4 again.
2 for 3. Yes.
James, you got it twice.
2 for 3.
So
Rob,
close,
me
Susan.
as well.
4, 5, 4. You just missed your 5, 5, 5.
4, 5, 4. Did somebody get all those right?
2 out of 3. 2 of us got 2 out of 3.
Oh, let's go for the
a bigger group that you have. You think about it. Put on a 30 die. Put a 30 die.
Should I can do that. I can reach back here.
Give us a really good number. Ooh.
All right, let's have a look.
Okay,
I've got
D30.
D6.
Oh, no.
Oh, D60.
Oh, that's kind of sick making.
30?
That's too much. I've got a D20. How about that?
Whatever you say.
Oh, I got to change my guess.
Everybody should pick a different number.
Roll for saving throws.
All right.
I
For
know
the
it's
supplementary, numbers are coming in 19, 15, 18.
Wait, what number
11,
is it?
1. It's a D20.
Okay, so I'm going to say 5.
I should have predicted that. Okay, here it comes. And it is, good grief.
4.
4. Again? Wow.
4, 4, 4, 5, 4.
I got 3 out of 4.
Whoa.
Nice. Karen.
Wow, Karen, let's go buy a lottery ticket.
Karen needs to apply for the paranormal test.
Oh,
but I do this every time we do this game. I pick one number and I just do it for every roll.
Well, Karen, I've been trying to do that for a year, 2 years, and it's not helping.
All right. And while we're doing that, I'd like to wish all our listeners, all my listeners, from all of us, a very happy 2022.
Oh, happy
You too, Richard.
2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year, everybody.
New Year party. Gotta be New Year somewhere.